Welcome to our channel, Behind My Story. Please like, share and subscribe.
Emily and I became best friends during junior year of high school. We bonded over a similar love of acting. We were both in the theater program, hung out in the same groups, and had classes together. It just seemed so easy to be best friends. Things got complicated when it was time to move on to college. We didn't go to the same university, but we were still pretty close as friends. We texted a lot about what was happening in our lives, and when I needed advice, she was the first person I talked to. I had a tough time transitioning from high school, where everything seemed to come so easily to me. College was a completely different place for me, and she was the only one I talked to about it. Freshman year, I saw her every other month. She was so close that we could still try and find time to hang out together. I didn't have many friends, so it was easier to give her my free time. I didn't mind, she was my best friend. Sophomore year was the same. Only I had my life in order this time. I wasn't struggling in my classes, but my social life was still the same. I had few friends that I actually hung out with, and I was okay with that because I had her. We talked and texted about everything, and I vented all my worries and frustrations to her. If it weren't for her, I wouldn't have survived those first 2 years. I don't really remember what happened last summer before junior year, but I guess that's when I decided I needed to come out of my shell and enjoy my college years. My junior year began and I met new people who I came to really enjoy being around. They lived in the dorms in the same hall as me, so it was so easy to just hang out with them even if it was until 2 a.m. And we had classes early the next day. I gave them more of my time and I didn't even realize that I had put my relationship on hold with my best friend. I didn't find out until I tried talking to her and she wouldn't respond. I found out later from my sister, who was also good friends with her, that they had talked about how I was ignoring her. She would text and I wouldn't respond. She would try to talk to me and I was too busy. I didn't really remember doing any of that. I had the thought that I was pretty consistent and always responding. I had grown attached to my new friends. They had become basically a part of my everyday life, and I had unconsciously replaced her. The last 2 months of our friendship, I had tried to talk to her and fix things, but it was useless. It was the end of the semester, so we were both stressing over finals and family stuff, so we wouldn't really talk. We finally talked during winter break. I had no excuse for what I had done, and when she called, I told her I never wanted to lose her. Our friendship ended that day. I sat in my room and cried for a while thinking about the great person I had just lost. I felt guilty for what I had done. I had moved on without telling her, and that's where I messed up. Later that night, I came to a decision that from now on, I wouldn't take friendships so lightly, even if they were long distance. She was a very important part of my life, and I regret letting her go. I hope one day I have the courage to let her know how important she was to me. She did so much for me, even if it was a simple text to see how I was. I still hold hope that one day we can be friends again. That's not the whole story though. Emily lent her ears to a group of girls and instead of trying to get me back to my senses, she let someone steal her from me. I was so ready to try to make things up until I heard her side of the story. I just want to give her a giant thank you. And yes, I was bitter. So very bitter when I found out the real reasons as to why my best friend wasn't talking to me as much. I was mad at her and I blamed her for everything. I blamed her for the lost times that I had with her. For the memories, I regretted everything, from the money to the borrowing of clothes to the simple things like helping around the house because it was all nothing but wasted time. I blame you, Emily. I want her back. I want my best friend back in my life and doing things with me such as makeovers, going on trips, double dates, shopping together, things that normal best friends do. But I couldn't because Emily chose to be with other friends. I don't need her, and I have to thank her for that. She must not have been a true friend if, in her eyes, she could up and leave with no real reasoning behind it, or an explanation. How can someone just forget that someone in their life once existed? It's cruel to do that to a human being. Human beings are made to feel wanted, which that is not it. And as for the girl who stole my best friend, please make sure you're there for her when she and her boyfriend go through a tough time together. Make sure you're there to talk to her when she's having doubts about college, or even if her family is nagging at her. Make sure you're there for her makeover sessions, shopping sprees, or just movie nights. Hold her when she cries over Beauty and the Beast. Just be the best person you can for her. I know that she needs it more than ever, because that is what she deserves. I really don't think I will ever be over this. She left me over a stupid reason for something you caused. And it's okay. You live and learn. Someone once said, some people may leave, but it's not the end of your story. It's the end of their part in your story. I'm always going to treasure our friendship, even though things weren't just meant to be. Your best friend is your best friend for a reason, and it should not end in the way mine did. Remember all the moments that you had, because one day you may outgrow each other or move on to other things.
I don't believe in ghosts, evil spirits, haunted houses, metaphysics, etc. I only believe in science and facts. But sometimes things happen that shred all your beliefs. I want to introduce myself. I'm Lisa. I'm 14 years old. I live with my mom, dad, and grandmother, and they're all very proud of me. I'm the leader of the science club at school, and I've been the perfect student for the past 2 years. My hobbies are reading, watching educational videos, and learning. I like to discuss matters with rational people, not those who believe in myths, aliens, ghosts, and other such nonsense. I personally think these people have mental issues. One morning, my grandmother passed away. I was sad for a long time because I missed her so much. On the day of her funeral, the whole city must have come to say goodbye. While the priests were praying, I noticed something peculiar about one of the graves in the graveyard. After the prayer ended, I approached the grave in question to investigate. There was some weird writing on it. Then, a wispy, transparent, smoky figure appeared out of nowhere. It said to me, "Do not get closer to Donna Median's grave. Beware." I shivered slightly and asked the apparition who Donna was, and it replied. Who was she? She was an evil witch who liked to scare people. She was burned at the stake as a witch, but before her death she swore a curse that if anyone ever approached her grave, her ghost would haunt that person to the day they die. I did not laugh at the apparition's warning. Instead, I turned and returned home, thinking about what had happened. On a sudden defiant impulse, I decided to visit that grave that night to see for myself if the curse was real. I took my dad's flashlight and wore a raincoat. It was pitch black outside. The place was horribly unsettling at night, but I wasn't worried at all. It's not like it was real, right? I entered the gate to the sound of howling dogs and meowing cats. My blood ran cold, and a sudden chill ran through me. I turned on the flashlight and began searching for the grave. My hands were trembling so badly I dropped the flashlight several times. Sometimes I would step on something crunchy, and I would shine the light downward, only to see that I had stepped on an insect. Sometimes I'd see a cat here and there. Then suddenly, I heard an eerie sound close by. I froze, not daring to move. Slowly, I pointed my light towards the sound. and gasped as my light illuminated a dark, shadowy figure. It was about my height and dressed all in black. I spun around and fled as rapidly as my faithful feet could carry me. I dove into bed, but I didn't sleep at all that night. I even left the lights on. The next day, when I woke up, I asked my dad if graveyards had ghosts, and he wondered why I would ask such a question. I was embarrassed and laughed to hide my fear. I told him that I was just curious. That was all. Dad looked at me suspiciously, but continued. I've heard stories, he said, that some people have seen a ghost of a girl from time to time beside Donna Median's grave. I felt my heart sink, and I asked slowly, "Is she about my height and dressed in black?" He replied, "Yes, that's how I've heard the ghost described." "How in the world did you know that?" I looked down casually and answered, "Oh, I read an article about it on the internet last night." My head hurt just thinking about this ghost thing. I made up my mind to prove or disprove it once and for all. I called my friend Laura and persuaded her to come with me to the grave. The following night, we met at the stroke of midnight at the entrance to the graveyard. Laura was shaking and constantly casting glances right and left. The weather was rainy and gloomy. The ground was muddy, and cats were meowing everywhere. It would have made the perfect setting for a supernatural horror movie. While we were looking for Donna's grave, flying bats would occasionally startle Laura, causing her to scream alarmed. As we approached Donna's grave, we suddenly heard a sound behind us. We both turned around at the same time and screamed. A ghost was glaring at us. It asked angrily, "What are you doing beside my grandmother's grave?" "Wait a minute. Are you girls?" She uncovered her face, revealing that she was just a girl, and a beautiful one at that. She told us that her name was Carmen, and asked me to turn off the flashlight, 'cause it hurt her eyes. I did. Then I asked, "Who are you?" She replied, "I'm the 5th grandchild of Donna Median, the poor woman in this grave, who has been wrongly accused." We both whispered back, "Wrongly accused?" She continued saying, "Yes, she was a victim of the Holocaust during World War II. Afterwards, she became a simple doctor who treated people who were afflicted with epilepsy. As usual, there are always some small-minded superstitious people looking to make trouble for others. They accused her of being a witch because they considered epilepsy to be a disease caused by a demon's touch. I come here every day to put flowers on her grave. People have mistaken me for a ghost because I only come at night. I don't want people to know I'm related to someone they think to be a witch. I don't want to be shunned, scorned, or gossiped about." I tried to comfort her and calm her a little by saying, "Don't worry, Carmen. Your grandmother's spirit may be able to rest in peace if you tell people the truth now. We live in more modern times, and there's no need to worry. I won't tell anyone about you being the ghost. It'll be our little secret." Carmen laughed. She and I became good friends after that. Ever since that day, whenever I hear someone talking about ghosts, I just look at the photo I took of Carmen and I break out laughing.